Hello, everybody! Welcome back to Generation Jumble! Season 3, Summertime 11. Now, a lot has happened since I last checked up with you guys, since Tapu Koko got banned. We've had 3 rounds of the tournament. I apologize, but I'm now going to try to make these videos, which is mostly big highlights and occasional reactions to live matches. So, what's happened since I last talked to you guys? Well, Tapu Koko got banned, and ever since he went away, the 3 main Pokemon you saw outside of him didn't leave. Alolan Raichu has stayed and was by far the most used lead in the game. Gastrodon is really good, one of the most dangerous Amnesia sweepers as well. Same with Palossand, who either became a really good Amnesia setter or a good Hypnosis Pokemon. Let's just start with Raichu. Now, the vast majority of people have been using Raichu as a lead, which is very understandable. It has the same speed as Tauros, Thunder Wave, it has the Psychic typing and the Electric typing. That just is a really deadly type combination. That means you're really good against Starmie. You wall Executor. You don't like Jinx, but at least you're faster than Jinx and can paralyze it. And you have coverage in both Surf and Submission. Surf is good against other ground types, such as, Palossand, which you definitely will see a lot of. And Submission is good for Chansey. Most people have been using Surf, but you do see the occasional Submission. And some people at the beginning were using Sing. However, I'm telling you right now, Sing is absolutely not good whatsoever. You can't use it like how you would Chansey. The difference with Chansey is 100% because it is super bulky and gets a lot of free turns in. So you can afford to miss a turn with Sweep. You can't do the same thing with Raichu Alola. It's just not gonna work out for you. In fact, even though it's mainly a lead, Roscato's been pretty vocal about this. But it's probably much better as a mid-game cleaner. Because again, it has the exact same speed stat and crit rate as Tauros, has the exact same special stat as Jinx, and your Psychic hits just as hard, except you also have Stab Thunderbolt. And obviously, an Electric type with water coverage is huge. So honestly, you can probably do better with Raichu here, but even as a lead, still really good. Lead Raichu has there's no real way you could punish it outside of leading your ground type first, which I would argue is not very good. Now, next up is Gastrodon. Gastrodon has a pretty solid argument for being the best Pokemon in the format, not counting the big 3. In fact, for those of you who are wondering, I'll talk about it more later, but the big 3 are pretty comfortably in the same spot, but just like in most Jumble seasons, it's not super mandatory to include them all. But one interesting thing, I think especially with Alolan Raichu in the format, but Psychic types still aren't really as mandatory. Obviously, you still need at least one on your team, but I think because just how popular Raichu's been, it's been usually filling the role as Psychic type for most teams. So we haven't really seen any Alakazams or Sworbos or Jinx. We still see Starmies, obviously, and even today, I did see at least 2 Alakazams, so it's not like they're uncommon, but it's not like Season 2, where Psychic was definitively the best type in the game. I find that interesting. Now, as for Gastrodon here, there are 2 moves you always see on it, those being Amnesia and Recover, basically just like Mewtwo. And what you want next is completely up to you, because there is a lot of different moves Gastrodon can have, going from Stab Surf. It can run Wizard, because it learns that. It can also learn Ice Beam if you want more power points. You haven't seen it yet, but I did have a match with Funnyman that was extremely close. I won't say which side won yet, but what I will tell you is that Wizard power points became very relevant. So I have been learning the hard way that even with Amnesia, you need the power points. So I definitely understand why Swirlo always uses Surf in Gen 1 OU instead of Psychic. Because, yeah, you definitely feel it. But here's the part that's interesting. Even though you're definitely a amnesia sweeper, because of your attack stat at 83, which is honestly really good, you are a pretty good, like, mix attacker as well. You do over 30% to both Stormy and Chansey. So you 3-hit KO both of them. That's huge. Especially if both of them are paralyzed. So you could go for 2 special moves. You could go for Amnesia, and then, like, a mixed attacking set, like you see on here. You have a lot of options with Gastrodon, which is why I personally think it's the best new Pokemon added. Which is very interesting, because we have Ludicolo. Ludicolo is alright. It has Razor Leaf, obviously that's really good. It has Surf, it can run Blizzard. It has Sword Stance with Hyper Beam, all that stuff. But despite that, you just never really see it that much. Or you do see it, don't get me wrong. But it's not like... It's not just beating Gastrodon. You're not putting Ludicolo's on teams just to beat it. Which I find fascinating. I kind of get it though. Whenever I use Ludicolo personally, I always feel like it could be doing something better. I'm often just very disappointed with it. So I can definitely get why other people aren't too fond of it. And by that, it obviously means that Gastrodon just does a lot better. So that's my personal take on what the strongest Pokemon is. But later on, I have 2 quotes from both Zacanthias and Sotina. I asked all my council members to give their thoughts on the format. So I have Zacanthias and Sotina, and then once I do the round 2 highlights, I will have Cyber DJ and Claus give me their thoughts. But for me, Gastrodon, definitely the best Pokemon so far. If not Gastrodon, Raichu is definitely the most used, but Palossand is the second contender for like the best Pokemon. But it's very different, but also very similar. As a ground type, it does its well of eating up electric moves very well, and even though it doesn't resist Zapdos' Drill Peck, because of your high defense stat, and way more importantly, access to your signature move Shore Up, you can eat up like Drill Pecks easily, or just anything really. The only thing Palossand needs to worry about is Blizzard. And to be fair, you got a lot of that, so shouldn't be too surprising. But outside of that, Palossand is just really good defensively. You really are just a much better Rhydon with that ghost typing. And you have mixed attacking stats too. You have Earthquake, which doesn't hit as hard as Gastrodon, but 75 isn't bad. Nothing to sneeze at. You can hit decently hard against things like Chansey. You have Psychic, which is your main attacking or special attacking move. And the last move is either Hypnosis or Amnesia. Especially at the beginning, I was definitely seeing a lot more Hypnosis, and I still see it now. But now, personally, I think I'm leaning towards more people by giving it Amnesia. Because Palossand is a really hard Pokemon to remove off the field if you don't have ice moves. And you get free turns in. So being able to boost that special and making Palossand your win con, when it's normally going to be your defense Pokemon, it ends up working pretty well. Like, surprisingly well. Even with Psychic, not even a stab move. I like that a lot. And I think a lot of people do as well. Granted, you need to wait till the end, because ice moves, especially from like even Tauros, are devastating. Especially with a crit. And since you don't hit as hard as both Gastrodon or even Slowbro, you do need more time to set up your Amnesias. But still, it's a really good Pokemon. The only reason I don't think it's better than Gastrodon is because Gastrodon just has better stats, I would argue. Not to mention, it's funny, but 35 speed, faster than both Snorlax and Slowbro, but Gastrodon 39. And I think being able to outspeed Palossand is a big deal, but obviously, along with having a better attack stat, having just a much wider move pool with ice and water coverage, that's just really important. It just makes Gastrodon really hard to beat, especially since it's only weak to grass. which the only real grass type you're using is Woodakoa. And Woodakoa has its own problems. So that's just my 2 cents. But to be honest, considering Raichu's being used so much more, it probably should be considered the second best Pokemon added. But there's others that are worth talking about, at least for now. Sadly, can't talk about everything, but I'll talk about the things that interest me. So Sawsbuck is kinda neat, because at first, it was just used as a second Tauros, same way Persian usually is, but with some like really good advantages. For starters, the grass type is both good and bad for it. It really hates the blizzard weakness, but it absolutely thrives with that grass typing, especially with Gastrodon and Palossand in the format. And I know I just said Woodakoa is the only real option you have for grass, but that's because the only thing Sawsbuck has is Horn Leech, a signature move, which is 60 base power on a 60 base special Pokemon, which on its own is like kind of mid, especially since you have moves like Sword Stance, Jump Kick that you wish you could run. But it does do decent damage to the ground types, especially Gastrodon. But a big problem is that Sawsbuck doesn't stay on the field long. Unlike Tauros, you're not anywhere near as bulky. And with that grass typing, sometimes it could be taken advantage of. So Sawsbuck, most of the time, has been used as a mid-game cleaner. And using things like Sword Stance just isn't really possible, since you just can't really profit with it as much. Not to mention, you already have base Tauros' attack stat with normal stab. So just like Hisuian and Zoroark, Sword Stance is kind of overkill. And since you're not as bulky, it's just not even as good. You have Jinx's speed set already. You have a great crit rate. You're just better off attacking. And you don't have, Body Slam, unfortunately. But Double Edge does work pretty well. And Hyper Beam, Tauros' Hyper Beam, is still as dangerous as ever. So Sawsbuck, on its own, is honestly pretty good. But what I've been seeing some people use, which really intrigues me, is Lead Sawsbuck. Because one move that Sawsbuck has that Tauros doesn't is Thunder Wave. And a lot of, leads are low in Raichu, or ground types to try to beat the low in Raichu. Or you're just using standard leads like, let's say, Starmie. So I don't know about you, but I really like the Thunder Wave lead here. It's like a combination of a standard OU lead along with Tauros and Ubers, since Tauros is usually a good lead in Ubers just for immediate damage. So being able to paralyze whatever's in the field, and then either heal with Horn Leech or hitting really hard with Double Edge and Hyper Beam, I really like it. I think Sawsbuck it might see a bit of a rise, because it's just interesting seeing a Pokemon being used like that. Next up, I want to talk about Vanillux. I said Vanillux was going to do really bad, and when I played it a few times, I thought it had issues. But luckily, people like Plausible, Convex, and Sotina have proved to me that Vanillux does a pretty good job at what it wants to do. And most of the time, it's just a Ice type with pretty decent stats and bulk that explodes when it's convenient. Obviously, everyone uses Blizzard on it, and almost everyone uses Explosion, as you can probably imagine. But you surprisingly have more options, despite the move pool being limited. You can use Acid Armor to boost its defense. A lot of people use Hyper Beam, which I can see the appeal of, but I personally don't like using Hyper Beam when there's not any other physical move to use alongside it, and Explosion does not count. But still. Other moves people have used on it is Rest, because some people like Sotina have managed to use a lot of longevity with Vanillux, which is pretty nice. And you also can just use Ice Beam if you just want more power points. That's what I personally do, but the Hyper Offense versions I've seen with Vanillux are honestly really good, and I can see that being the best one. So most likely something like either Blizzard, Explosion, Hyper Beam, and then Rest. That can be pretty good. It just depends. But I'm glad Vanillux hasn't been forgotten. Not like Camerupt. I have not really seen Camerupt using any serious play, which is a shame because it's an Amnesia user, but it makes sense. Gastrodon regularly uses Surf, and even if it doesn't, you have plenty of Ice users with great crit rates that can just hit through. Keep in mind in Gen 1, Camerupt will be weak to Ice because Fire did not resist Ice until Gen 2. So yeah, that really sucks for him. Also doesn't help that with so many water types, Fire Stab isn't as good. With more ground types, Ground Stab isn't as good. Not to mention, the very specific role of Amnesia mixed attacking ground type already has 2 ground types that are already a lot better. So yeah, that sucks. Poor Camerupt. Now, Tauros. The reason why I have Tauros here is just to represent all of the old Pokemon. Like I said, the Psychic types, they're still good as ever, but I've definitely noticed that with Raichu around, people don't use like more than one usually on their team. Chansey, Snorlax, and Tauros have just been doing their own things, but I've definitely seen West Amnesia lacks, but debatably it could be potentially better. But I do think with so many grass and electric types, and grass types and ground, all of that, electric is not as good without Tapu Koko. I started the season with like some like cool ideas using Zapdos and Jolteon and Raichu, and I might try doing that again in the future. But now that I'm seeing how the meta is adapting, electric is just not as good as it was at the start of the season. Tapu Koko really was a different beast altogether, but it's a lot harder now to really get away with electric spam. But that's just how the meta adapts. There's not much you can do there. Now, Rhydon has fallen off. You just don't see any Rhydon whatsoever. This probably will be the first time it drops to UU. But I have seen it used by a few Pokemon such as Myrox. Zapdos I still feel like is pretty good, all things considered. Just like in Season 2, even if the electric stab isn't as good, ironically, whenever Zapdos' electric stab falls down, the flying type gets much better. And with Sawsbuck and Woodakoa in the format, there are plenty of things that fear a Drill Peck. Not to mention Thunder Waves are being spread, just more in general. And if you do that, Zapdos loves using agility and outspeeding everything. But still, the best Pokemon in the format is definitely Tauros. And unfortunately, nothing but its movesets really change. It's still just your typical Blizzard, Body Slam, Hyper Beam, and Earthquake. There's not much reason to use Fire Blast, because you could just beat Sawsbuck with Blizzard anyways. Not to mention Woodakoa doesn't care about Fire Blast. And Earthquake is just good for stuff like Uro and Raichu. So yeah, that's how the meta's been. I apologize for never making a tier list and doing my predictions. If you guys really want me to make a video predicting, I could, but I'm assuming it's too little too late for that. But we will eventually have a viability rankings, and I do think I am interested in having another tier list ranking how good the actual types are, because now it's much more up in the air on what the best type is. Because normal, like the big 3 are definitely the best Pokemon, but ground honestly might be better than normal, but it's hard to say. Now, before I go on and see some of the highlights, because unfortunately, I'm not going to react to the entire, like the entire round 1 for you, but what I will do is give you some insight into what the councils are thinking. And so here's like a feel free to look at this image right here, what some of the council members say. You will not be seeing this group chat very often, but Melonward and Sotina gave me their thoughts. We're going to start with Zacanthius. And luckily, these two are going to be able to give me some like insight that I didn't bring up to you guys. Okay, my thoughts on Season 3 by, I don't know, blah blah blah, some British dude. For me personally, Season 3 has felt a lot more like Season 1 than Season 2, in all of the best ways. With a lot more of a balanced roster, with only one joke Pokemon, teams have been way more fun to build this season, as long as you use the Pokemon well. There honestly isn't much in the way of bad pick. Sawsbuck and Boo are great examples. Tapu Bulu was thought to be a bad pick, so we nicknamed it Tapu Poo Poo. But when you use the Pokemon and get up a Sword Stance and Outspeed, they can honestly go 3-0 pretty quickly. Volbeat and Mimiabo and Eggy are really the only new Pokemon I consider bad, and they were mostly joke theme picks. Amnesia is the name of the game for this season. If you can topple the Amnesia Pokemon before they beat yours, you're in good shape. Resource management, that's why this season feels so good now. And I think that RBY, it is all about HP being a resource, so being this season be one where HP of your Amnesia Pokemon is a high value resource, it makes sense. All in all, even though I lost twice, they were both actually way more fun than Season 2. RBY Jank lost me my first round, and then Quad just beat me fair and square in the second round with our funky teams. Hope you both found those fun. Season 2, as most people know by now, was poorly managed, way too big, with way too much waste. Season 1 was simple, smaller, and easier to keep track of. Season 3 is the same, and honestly, we've got a nice format kind of figured out. Ending note. Season 4 seems like it'll be weird. It will be interesting to see how that goes. Season 1, Season 3, Season 2. I would say is my tier list of my favorites. Also, Ground, I appreciate all that you do. I wouldn't have a community like this without you. Thanks, man. Thank you too, Zach and Theus. I appreciate you despite the fact that you are British. Now, I agree with a lot of what Zach and Theus just said there. Personally, I would still rank Season 2 above Season 1. Because I feel like Season 1 was just too random with the roster. Because you had things like Annihilate, the Dunsparce, Sceptile, and Metagross. All these are here, along with other weird picks like Hydreigon, Smeargle, and Heracross. And they didn't really do anything together. There was like no real theming. Even Season 2 had a theme, you know, with buffing the weakest types. But I will admit, it was definitely way more fun to play. Cannot fault Zach and Theus for that. So, I can see where he's coming from, and I can probably agree with that. Also, I'm not even gonna apologize for, like, some spoilers, because, unfortunately, we just won't be able to show you all of the season's battles. Because, unfortunately, these videos do kinda bad. Which sucks, and hopefully they do better in the future. But I just can't afford to just make a whole bunch of videos on every single match. So we're just gonna look at some of the highlights. And thank you, Zach, for your thoughts. Now, I'm pretty sure Satina has a bigger list, so this should be fun. Oh, never mind. Okay. Here's a short Satina essay on why Season 3 is great. Season 3 overall is pretty fun to play. It has one main drawback, and I think that it is also its strength. It plays like OG Gen 1 OU, meaning Big 3 is still mandatory for most teams to work properly. Although we've seen people drop Chansey and Snorlax to pretty good effect, Pearl also means the best thing around after Tapu Koko ban. Now about Tapu Koko, it was the most unhealthy thing we added by far in any Jumble related thing alongside Dire Claw Season 2. It was just broken. Sally Tapu Koko could have been interesting without Nature's Madness, but with it, nothing was allowed to take any kind of chip damage, otherwise they'd be in range of all of its moves, and it would still be pretty bulky on top of that. So it had to go to Ubers, where it settled as one of the best Pokemon around. Now after Tapu Koko ban, Meta went back to actual Gen 1 stuff, that where creativity was the most allowed and it was at its peak since the format was the most unrestricted despite having the mandatory Big 3. We saw a lot of interesting meta development, and even the Pokemon that were considered worse than the others got roles, allowing them to shine in the right condition. As an lead example, Lead Sawsback has been discovered for more offensive leading team. And yes, even Volbeat can pull in some good luck alongside lower tier Pokemon, getting a chance to do something, main ones being Moltres and Dugtrio for now. Then when it all comes to the new Pokemon, they are all viable technically, and all of them have unique traits that are interesting to explore. The impressive thing is that all Pokemon in the format have at least 2 viable sets they can use freely, and even something with a little moves like Vanillux has a variety, variants. I find this very great. Also, this season has a place for every playstyle. Every kind of team and Pokemon are viable this time around, with no actual dominant strategy, and it is still one more exclamation left for us to do. And with that, Sotina, thanks for reading my take on Season 3 metagame. I'll agree with a lot of that too, but a lot of it I definitely disagree with. I really feel like... Okay, Tauros, yeah, I can definitely see Tauros being mandatory. But even then, like, even today, like, I've seen some pretty fun matches without Tauros. But I wouldn't really feel comfortable using without it. So Tina's probably right. Tauros probably is so mandatory. But I do think this season is definitely very focused around your Amnesia Sweeper. I feel like every team needs at least one of those. Otherwise, I think it's just kind of really hard to succeed with. But you definitely can. You most certainly can. So overall, yeah, thank you, Sotina, for your input. Next time I see you guys, I will be talking to you about whatever Plaz and Cyber have to say. But here's the bracket. Like I said, a lot of the brackets already happened, so... Like, you're gonna see everything here. We had started with Zack and Theus versus Funnyman, Possible versus Riscato, Roundback versus W Chatter, Myrex versus Shelly, Zastray versus Cyber DJ, Gobby versus Sotina, Melon Ward versus GQ, Convex versus Gemstone, though originally it was Eris versus Gemstone. We had a lot of fun matches, and if you like to see everything, I highly recommend joining the server. If you join the server, like, we already have this channel, the Jumble Tournament Replays. You can find everything there. But if you don't want to do that, you still have this video. And now, I'm going to react to the replays that my council members thought were the most fun matches in Season 1. Or, no, Round 1. First off, we have Plausible versus Riscato. Riscato consistently does pretty well for these tournaments. He got 3rd place in both the Season 2 tournaments. And Plausible, while being a council member, never actually played in Generation Jumble before. This was his first ever official match. They fortunately only had the one because of just some scheduling issues, but it was still a pretty fun one. Let's react to it together. Now starting off, we have Lead Raichu versus Lead Starmie. Going into Chansey, Chansey eating that Thunderbolt pretty easily. Plausible goes into his own Chansey, and so far it's gonna be what you expect. Chansey Mirror, we all see those, we all love those, ish. We can skip it a little bit until something interesting happens. And so far, we have Executor, which is always nice. Going into Gastron immediately, eating up that Thunder Wave. They go into Executor. You go for Amnesia. You have to switch out, which means it's definitely not like using any ice moves. Or maybe it's just scared of freezing. Like, Riscato's Raichu gets paralyzed, which is unfortunate. The special drop is also really nice here, but you also get a special drop of your own. They go into Executor. The Psychic does nothing. You don't get a special drop either. But you might as well take the opportunity to paralyze it. Executor is fully paralyzed. You get the crit. This Raichu is a beast, getting a special drop of its own. Double Edge does a lot of damage to Raichu because it has low defense. You go into Chansey. Psychic does nothing. No special drop. You're forced to switch. They go for Ice Beam. And no freeze. Going for Seismic Toss because you're scared to go switch to anything else. Chansey's doing an alright job so far. I'm assuming you're just trying to lower it to force Chansey to go for Soft Boiled. And luckily you're fully paralyzed there. So far so good. You switch to Executor. You get hit with an Ice Beam. They go into their own Raichu. Psychic does pretty good damage, especially with that special drop. Go for another one. Raichu's almost dead. Executor gets paralyzed, but it's faster because of the special drop. You go into Snorlax, gets hit with a crit, does more than half. You go into Starmie, you go for Reflect, which isn't helping you too much. Now you go for Rest, which ends up working, you're fine. Starmie switches into Gastrodon, taking those opportunities to go for those Amnesias. Amnesia gets up, we switch again because it's with Executor. Executor is fully paralyzed, the other one's fully paralyzed. You go for Double Edge. And Starmie is pretty good here with Blizzard. I don't know if it kills. Doesn't matter too much. You go for Blizzard, gets a crit. Do you get the freeze? No, you don't. You're forced to switch out because you're scared of Thunder Wave. So far, anyone's game. Seems pretty even between these two. No freezes yet, which is definitely great if you're paused. You keep waiting for Seismic Toss, but I feel it's just a matter of time before you get frozen. Obviously, I can always be wrong about that, but it just feels like that's about to happen. So far, it's going pretty well for pause though. The chances being forced to soft-boiled more. You have more soft-boils than... Oh no, it's literally the same. Never mind. So though, like, forcing the chance to use all of its power points, pretty good. Though I feel like with... Or actually, no, this is probably the right play. Not the most exciting thing, but there's the freeze. Took a long time, but it finally happened. You go into Executor, go for submission, getting the crit. The recoil does not kill Raichu. You get another hit in, and you get another crit, hilariously enough. So the Raichu, once again, still putting in work. Chansey's basically dead. The Raichu's, or the Executor is basically dead. So, it's looking really great for Rescata right now. One for recover, just having as much HP as possible. And now you get a free chance to wake up your Snorlax. You immediately go into Executor, which is interesting. There's like the enemy Executor. And Pause loves to use Rest, so it gains all of its HP back. So I lied when I said it was basically dead. Now, going back into Chansey, this is a free soft-boiled. And to be honest, Gastrodon can probably set up there. But now that we see the Surf, we understand why it was scared of Executor. And now something could be in danger of being put to sleep. But this is a pretty close game so far. Boss goes for a Harden. I forgot to mention it earlier, but some people were freaking out that Harden was the biggest threat for Gastrodon. But I don't think it's very good. But still, it's working decently well so far. Gastrodon gets paralyzed, but to be fair, it has great defensive stats, so it might not care too much. Body Slam is still doing decent chip. But oh no, that one glitch where you can't recover. Luckily, he did take some damage, so you can recover again. And Gastrodon is looking really threatening right now. Not much can really take it on. Unless you get a crit. Which, ironically, that's been the main way to beat Gastrodon. Not even like grass types. At least from my experience, Starmie has by far been the most viable thing to fight against Gastrodon. Which definitely helps considering Starmie resists both ice and water. So that's definitely why you see it so much. Not to mention with a great crit rate, it can't crit twice in a row. But to be fair, Max Special Surf does hurt a lot. No crits yet, but we are seeing full paralysis. That sucks. But that Surf does so much damage. 60%. 62% technically. Missing a Surf there, or a Blizzard. That's unfortunate. But Starmie is hanging on. But there's enough Surfs to stall out the recover. But that's another full turn, full paralysis. No crit. And Starmie is hanging on for dear life. It is not looking good. Oh no. Alright, no full paralysis. It's still anyone's game. Quas hasn't taken any casualties yet. There's a crit, which ironically does save Starmie there. How many Surfs do they have? Only 11. So actually, yeah, this is looking pretty good. Like, once you run out of Surfs, this Gastrodon can't do anything. Going for more Hardens, because Pause definitely realized this. They definitely realized they were running out of, like, gas. But there's a crit, and there's not a second crit, unfortunately. But there it is. The Gastrodon technically still alive. You need another crit, and you get it! Let's go! Now there's your own Starmie. And this is winnable for Rescato. Definitely winnable. The Raichu game paralyzed is absolutely huge. Submission does a lot of damage. I forgot that technically Alolan Raichu has more attack. At least I'm pretty sure it does. Starmie can get the kill here pretty easily, so you're forced to switch. Go into Tauros, which I say was a pretty risky play. But you go into Chansey, Starmie gets a free recover. Thank God he didn't switch into anything. That Surf would have hurt. And calling the switch, they switch into Starmie, which is now paralyzed. A huge boost for Rescato here. Chansey gets healed, so submission Raichu isn't even looking that good. Practically almost dead. You go into Executor. They went for Thunderbolt. Makes sense. Starmie gets the kill there. The crit definitely mattered. And we're on turn 120. And this is just the first match I'm showing you guys. Jesus Christ. Hopefully my throat can handle more of these replays, as long as not as long as this one. But it definitely seems like a big Riscato comeback. Very hard for Plausible to come back from this when you have one Pokemon that's asleep, one that's paralyzed, one that's frozen. You only really have Tauros, which, luckily with Starmie asleep, it definitely gives you a chance. Same with Exeggutor getting rest. Honestly, Rest Exeggutor is really nice. Not as much when your Exeggutor gets hit with Crit Explosion, though. That's unfortunate. And Riscato still hasn't revealed their final Pokemon. They're trying to call a switch, which is not happening. The last one is, of course, Tauros. I don't think anyone's surprised. Chansey is basically dead here. You call the switch, but yeah, you can't risk Tauros getting paralyzed here. You just lose the game if that's the case. There's just too much to lose here. But it's definitely a situation where Riscato can be way more comfortable than Plaza's. Chansey's finally taken out. You can paralyze Tauros here if it went for the full paralysis. That's definitely huge. Now it's time for that inevitable Tauros mirror. There's the crit. You don't like to see it. Oh my god, you switched to Starmie. Starmie does not wake up in time. So, Starmie gets taken out. Now you have Tauros, which gets the crit, giving Riscato the win. Or technically not. You still have Starmie here. But all Plausible does is paralyze. Not enough. So, Body Slam gets a crit. Still doesn't kill. You go for another recover. And Hyper Beam does finally get the kill there. Really sad these two didn't get to finish their match. Because as you saw from this 157 turn game, it was incredibly close. And I still badly wish I could have seen it live. But oh well. Next up, we have Myrox versus Shelly. Now, I'm surprised Myrox decided to come back for another tournament. Both these two are primarily Yu-Gi-Oh players, but Shelly has spent a lot of time just interacting with Pokemon. So at this point, he's just flat out with both. But still, I'm always glad to see Myrox here. I always appreciate it. And these two have a big, rival with each other. They, kind of hate each other, but, in a very cute way. And I remember watching this match live, so let's see this. We have Lead Exeggutor versus Lead Raichu. And Raichu gets put to sleep, which kind of sucks, but at the same time, your Psychic type Exeggutor that can't do that much to you. Shelly goes in the Palisand. Myrox goes to Alolan Exeggutor. Alolan Exeggutor, in my opinion, isn't that bad. But it's not really the fact that it's competing with... oh yeah, Mega Drain, I forgot about that. But my issue with Alolan Exeggutor is the fact that it's faster than regular Exeggutor. That makes a huge difference. Since, for example, Exeggutor can always outspeed and put it to sleep. Which means some tech, such as Flamethrower, just isn't as impactful anymore. But that's just my 2 cents. At the very least, being quad resistant to both electric and water has its uses. But yeah, we have Alolan Exeggutor. You switch back into Raichu. Exeggutor is not moving. You go back into Palisand. Palisand's probably going to get a free Shore Up, which sucks. You're trying to wake up, because you most likely have Surf, but it's not working out for you. But to be honest, since you had a feeling they were probably going to go for Shore Up, I think it was worth going for. Trying to go for the crit, you just don't get it, but you do survive. You go for another crit, or you try to go for it, but it doesn't happen. They went for another Amnesia, maybe he'll get lucky, not so much there. But they go for another Amnesia, getting greedy, not even healing, and the crit finally hits, killing the Palisand. Going back into Exeggutor, a Raichu has to switch out, it has no choice. There's the special drop, unfortunately, but still going for the Flamethrower anyways. And to be fair, even with the special drop, it still did decent damage. Explosion kills the Exeggutor, a fantastic trade. You can now paralyze the Chansey. Honestly, for someone who barely plays Gen 1, I'd say Myrox is playing this very well. Going into Snorlax, you go into Slowbro. Getting a crit Body Slam is actually huge. Getting another Body Slam does good damage. They go for Amnesia. Snorlax can technically win the Speed Tie and kill, but it doesn't work out that way. Myrox went for Hyper Beam, which honestly, I can respect the play. You get another crit, which is insane. Shelly's having abysmal luck today. Or maybe it's more like Myrox is getting good luck. Tapu Bulu comes in. You go for Sword Stance. You get another crit, which is insane. Tapu Bulu goes for Hyper Beam. Not enough to kill, but the opposing Hyper Beam is enough. You go for Tauros. Hyper Beam should kill here. Good enough. But Myrox does have a full team. And an Alakazam, so it's basically over. Poor guy. Especially with Reflect, that's just icing on the cake. A crit was also very needed, along with a special drop. And full paralysis! Oh my god, that's amazing! I love Gen 1! As you can see, people in chat were giving their condolences to Shelly. He probably needed it. Which is weird. When I had this luck against... Ignore what I said there. I promise I'm not a mean person. Oh god, I just added myself. So yeah, that was insane. And we have more matches between them. Now, Alolan and Raichu versus Alolan and Raichu. This should be fun. Going immediately into Gastrodon, definitely the right call to make. Probably going for Earthquake. No, you just go for it straight into Amnesia. I definitely think that's a good call. Mega Drain hits really hard, but Ice Beam with Amnesia hits harder. Exeggutor is taken out, going immediately into Snorlax. Ice Beam does a third. Pretty good damage. Now you go for Recover here. You're faster, which is definitely nice. A critical Hyper Beam does kill you. So that's unfortunate. Going into Sawsbuck, going for that Sword Stance. Body Slam will not get the paralysis since Sawsbuck is a normal type. Hyper Beam is more than enough to kill there. Going into Raichu. Hyper Beam is also enough to kill here, but you miss, unfortunately. Go into Tauros, you're fully paralyzed. Blizzard misses, you paralyze the Tauros. Probably a good call. Hyper Beam does get the kill. Even though Sword Stance and Sawsbuck isn't common, if you do manage to get it off, it is actually insane. Honestly, I agree with Myrox here just trying to go for the kill, since this Sawsbuck is definitely a huge threat. The crit there mattered, in case you were curious. Zam can heal. For some reason, Shelly goes for Surf. I personally would have gone for Thunder Wave. Like that. But Myrox called it going on the Rhydon, switching it to his own Raichu. Honestly, Shelly's Raichu is looking very dangerous right now. But with both Raichus paralyzed, it's nowhere near as bad if you're Myrox. But still, Shelly has 3 more Pokemon left, but all of your Pokemon are revealed. So I wouldn't feel super comfortable. Getting a crit definitely helps against the Raichu mirror. Now which one is better? It is Shelly's Raichu. Or no, it's not. No, it is. I had you fooled there. Going into Alakazam, you heal. Personally, I would have went with Rhydon. I think that was a big misplay on Myrox's part. But probably doesn't matter too much considering Myrox's team is very exhausted. And Rhydon is just a very slow Pokemon. So not much you can do. This, right now, Myrox has no excuse for it. You definitely should have switched into the Rhydon. Like, the only reason you might want to use Rhydon is specifically because it counters Zapdos really well. And Shelly just flexing. He knows he can handle the Rhydon later. So, let's just put this in Hyper Fast since we're pretty sure we know who wins this. There's the crit. Rhydon takes out the Zapdos. And then you have Exeggutor. Yeah, there's not much Rhydon's gonna do here. Shelly wins game 2. Now, Shelly ended up winning the final set, and we have Zashri versus Cyber DJ. These two historically have had a nice rivalry. Especially in Season 1. Looking forward to see how this goes. Alright, let's find out together. Weed Exeggutor versus Weed Alolan Raichu. Only trade for Double Edge, just going for damage. I could respect the play. Going for Sweet Powder, an excellent trade against the enemy Exeggutor. They go into Snorlax, you go for Psychic, you get good damage in on the Snorlax. Go into Cloyster, which can handle almost everything Snorlax can throw. You weren't really expecting Fire Blast, but that was kinda cool, not gonna lie. Starmie's here, you go into Chansey, you eat the Thunder Wave very, very, very easily. Now what moves does Chansey have? We don't know. Gastrodon most likely goes for Earthquake, no, goes for Amnesia. But with Razor Leaf, you have to switch out. Razor Leaf will probably do good damage. Yeah, it does great damage to Alolan Raichu. You go into Chansey. Raichu most likely has Surf. No, it does have Submission. So it does a lot of damage, but Raichu's already taken so much that even this Chansey can probably take it out. Submission does nothing to Executor, but you probably don't mind because you don't really need the recoil right now. Going for Double Edge, doing decent damage. Let's see if Cyber does anything base and go for Explosion. Yes, he does! And you get the crit, killing Starmie! Classic Cyber. Now, Body Slam does crazy damage to Chansey. I'm surprised Cyber stayed in. Going in the Cloister, a Body Slam does not get the paralysis, that's huge. Now you're cramp locked, Cyber can switch in anything he wants. He chooses Moltres. Okay, that's kind of hot, literally. Holy shit, it's the fundamentals. Free switch in here into, what's it called? A Ludicolo. I can understand the Blizzard play predicting an Executor switch in, but it does suck that Raichu is hanging on by a thread. It makes it very annoying. Now Chansey gets hit with a crit, you're going to need the heal. A critical submission could kill you there, so I understand having to switch. The recoil is enough to kill Raichu. You go into Snorlax, you switch into Chansey, sacking it off. Chansey already did its job. Going back in the Cloister or Moltres. Oh yeah, for Fire Blast, that makes sense. Do you get the burn on Gastrodon? Yes you do, that's very annoying. But you lock it, so now you can go into Ludicolo. Or Cloister? I don't know what the point of that was. This is not looking very good for you, Cyber. You're forced to go for Explosion, which, unfortunate, but you could have easily prevented that. Moltres comes in, Fire Blast is very threatening on this physical Snorlax, even getting the burn. Body Slam does nothing, doesn't get the paralysis either. Moltres goes for Agility preemptively, and Self-Destruct doesn't even do that much because of the burn. In comes Tauros. I think it's kind of funny in hindsight how that Agility play was the best thing you could have done. Fire Blast does not kill, or Hyper Beam doesn't kill, I mean. But this is fine. The last Pokemon is probably Tauros. But even if it's not... Oh, that's kind of funny. Alright, let's see what the last Pokemon is. There's Executor. You switch into your own Tauros. Yeah, that's what I thought. Going for Blizzard, even though I'm pretty sure Body Slam's better. But not a big deal. Hyper Beam kills Executor here. You have the weakened Tauros versus the fully active one. If I was Astray, I would have gone for Hyper Beam, because a critical Hyper Beam would in fact kill Tauros. But yeah, that was definitely a good game for Cyber. It makes a lot of sense that Cyber moved on to the second round. Bobby versus Sotina. These two faced in Season 1, and Sotina was very tired and ended up losing. Let's see how she does the second time around. Both leads paralyze each other, but Sawsbuck with Sword Stance very threatening. Probably wouldn't have tried it against Alolan Raichu because it hits hard with Psychic. Do you have Horn Leech? Yes you do. You're going to gain back any health you lost from the Raichu, so maybe it makes sense. You're forced to switch into Executor here. A critical Horn Leech doesn't do that much, but you appreciate any chip you get. Psychic hits really hard. Hyper Beam hits harder. Executor's taken out. You go into your own Sawsbuck. Double Edge kills, but this Sawsbuck's already put in so much work. You go into Vanillux. Not much I can really switch in. Vanillux is also pretty bulky with 85 defense. Sawsbuck's taken out. You go into Snorlax here. Do you go for Explosion immediately? Yes, you do, but they call it that, unfortunately. Going for Tauros. Blizzard's going to hit really hard. You go into Raichu Alola. With a crit, Earthquake will be more than enough, or even Hyper Beam for that matter. Going for Earthquake, Ludicolo resisted pretty fine. Good for him. Go into Chansey. Most likely it's not Sword Dance Ludicolo, so you're most likely fine with this. Going for Sword Dance, look at me just being a liar. Seismic Toss does a lot of damage. Going for Mega Kick, I have not seen that before, but that's actually pretty cool. Ludicolo is fully paralyzed. Chansey will go for Reflect, making Sword Stance kinda not as good. I don't even know why Snorlax is called Myrox, but I find that funny. Paralysis is eaten up by the Palisand, but with Reflect, not too much you can do. But to be fair, Chansey can't do much either. Another crit with the Blizzard, holy crap. In comes Snorlax. You go into your own Snorlax, makes sense. Trying to go for counter, but it doesn't work. Using Reflect-Wax and another Mega Kick. What is going on? And unfortunately, it is Ice Beam Snorlax, so there is not much Gobby can do here. It's almost as if Sotina's entire team was built around like countering Gobbies, which is definitely not the case because this was round 1. It really just shows us how innovative both these players can be, but sometimes like Gobby can be terrifying, but this scenario, Sotina is definitely way more terrifying. I would not want to deal with this if I were you, or if I were Gobby, and unfortunately I very well might. Don't want to spoil what happens in the future, but yeah, Sotina does really well. Palace Stand of Water Westwell when it's frozen and being cooked by Ice Beam. Good for Sotina. She definitely redeemed herself for round 2. Or, yeah, from season 2. Funnyman vs. Zachantheus. This was pretty funny. Not so much that name. That Jeek's name is just full-on slander. But either way, going to Palisand, they have Vanillux. Even with Amnesia, you have to switch out. This does way too much damage. But Zachantheus doesn't switch out. Psychic does a decent chunk, but one of them is faster. Palisand hangs on by a thread. I think you need to switch out, yeah. Surprised you didn't do that earlier, but it's fine. A crit does way more than I would have expected it to do to Jinx. Holy crap. There's the special drop. Hyper Beam does kill, though. So I guess I can understand why Hyper Beam is pretty used now. That makes a lot of sense now that I'm actually watching these videos. You go in the Palisand to eat the Sweet Powder. You're okay with the Psychic. You go for Shore Up. Makes a lot of sense. You probably were going to survive anything Executor threw at you. And with Jolteon, you know for a fact you can get free turns later. Going in the Gastrodon, with Amnesia, you're not too scared. A little bit more with critical and special drop. Oh, poor Gastrodon. But that's what you get for giving it that nickname. That's just animal abuse. Going the Cloyster, going for Clamp instead of Blizzard. I probably would have went for Blizzard instead, but not a big deal. There's Jolteon. You get a critical Clamp, which is funny. Honestly, yeah, I think I'll go with Zachantheus here, just staying in and getting that chip damage. It's funny. Going in the Palisand, you stayed in, but you get hit with another crit. This Executor is just a beast. Going for Clamp again. I don't know what you want to switch into. Probably Tauros? Yeah, Tauros. Jolteon wakes up, but it's a little too late. Or maybe not, because they predicted the switch, so they went for Body Slam instead of Earthquake. Woodicolo is paralyzed. That's gonna be annoying when they have so many more Pokemon than you. Jolteon's taken out. They go into Vanillux. Probably going for Explosion. Yeah, they're taken out. Now in comes Zapdos against Cloyster. You have to stay in, and there's no way you're really beating this. Honestly, I probably would have gone for Explosion instead of Blizzard. But it gets a 2 KO either way, so it doesn't matter. Maybe you were hoping for a crit Blizzard, which definitely would have killed, but yeah, it's just not really in your favor. Probably self-destruct, I would imagine. No, just Body Slam. Trying to fish for that freeze, but you're just not getting it. So you're probably better just accept your losses now, because it's not looking too good. And there's the self-destruct, with a crit for good measure. Poor Zach. Now here's the match that I had with Z-Chatter. Z-Chatter was new. And this is their first time playing, and to be honest, they were really chill when I was talking with them. It was a nice battle. I went with Raichu, immediately paralyzing the Executor. I wasn't very too scared of it, even with sleep, because I felt like I could stay in, but they went for Explosion immediately. Leaving both of our turns just cut at Null and Void. They went straight into Tauros, but luckily I had Cloyster, eating up the Blizzard very easily. I just go straight for Blizzard. It does a decent amount of Snorlax, but I need the pivot. So I pivot, I go into Executor, just wanting to put the Moltres or the Snorlax to sleep. Executor gets paralyzed, I don't care, I have Sleep Powder, I'm free to do whatever I want now. They go in the Palisand, I'm fully paralyzed, they go for Amnesia, I go for Psychic, I get a crit, which definitely was really needed. I switch in the Cloyster, knowing they have to go for Shore Up here. I'm assuming they're going to switch, but they didn't, but I went for Blizzard anyways, does a lot of damage. Even with the special drop, I don't care too much, I think Blizzard's more than enough, which it ends up being. They go into their own Alakazam. I think I go for Explosion here, yes I do, getting the crit for good measure. They go into Tauros, I go back into Executor. I have no problem just going for Sleep Powder, but the critical Blizzard definitely hurt a lot. And I just go for Explosion here. Doesn't kill, but doesn't really need to. Go in the Gastrodon, I'm free to set up and finish them off. And there's not much I can really do here, because I can just set up. I kill with Earthquake, which I probably should have waited, but it doesn't really matter too much. Blizzard does a lot of damage here. Not enough for a kill, but Z-Chatter's just in a really bad position. It is hard for him to actually catch up. So that's taken out. All they have left is Chansey. I can go for Earthquakes, or I can boost up my Amnesia and hit really hard with Blizzard. Both are perfectly valid. I recover here. Chansey's trying to get that freeze, but even if they get the freeze, there's just so much they have to deal with. Just one Chansey against the world. Probably not going to work out for you. Blizzard, unfortunately, is only a 3-hit KO, but it's fine because I still have Earthquakes in the back. So it's all about just forcing the Chansey to use up all of its soft boils, which will happen eventually. Overall, though, I think Z-Chat did pretty good for their first match ever, and this was their first match ever, which is really, really cool. I really hope you stay for more matches. I would appreciate it. I like fighting against you. Overall, yeah, good game. Chansey can keep healing, but at some point, I'm just fishing for a crit. Not too great, but also getting a lot of opportunities. Chansey gets taken out, and there we go. Alright, for the last match we'll be looking at, it will be Cyber DJ versus Sotina. I think this might have been round 2, or maybe this was a practice match, I don't remember. Either way though, this looks pretty fun. I think this is a round 2 match, if I remember correctly. So, a little bit of a preview of what you're going to see in the future. So far it's going pretty well. Gengar is always cool to see. I think Gengar's a pretty exciting Pokemon, even though it's using Hypnosis. Switching in against the Power Slam was definitely a bold decision, but I can respect it. You get a critical hit on the Psychic, 2-hit KO in Sawsbuck. You go on the Lapras, which I think is actually really good. Not as good as Season 2, but I still really like it. Sotina with the tech with the Light Screen Vanillux. Gengar can now get 3-hit KO'd, and there's not much it can do here, other than trying to go for a special drop. There's no special drop yet. There's Blizzard, hits really hard. Probably going for Explosion. I'm surprised Sotina just switching the Power Sand. That seemed like the very obvious thing to do. But whatever. Blizzard hits Snorlax really hard. You go for a Body Slam. Do you get a Paralysis? No, you don't. But Snorlax will survive. Going for Rest. You love to see it. You're going for Thunderbolt, like, assuming something else is going to switch in. They go into Chansey. You go into Thunderbolt, no Paralysis, which I don't think you want Paralysis. Go into your own Chansey. That Chansey gets paralyzed. Now it's Cyber with the better Chansey. Snorlax can just get a free turn to wake up. And Chansey is fully paralyzed, make it even worse. Body Slam does a lot of good damage, and I don't think this is counter Chansey. You need to switch, because if it's Hyper Beam, you're just dead. There is another Body Slam. Not a kill. And do you get a Paralysis? No, you don't. Lapras does have Rest, though, so that's real good. Snorlax also has Rest, so both these guys are getting free turns to wake up and heal each other. That's nice to see. Anyone's game still. Snorlax gets hit with a Blizzard. No freeze. Go for Body Slam. No Paralysis. This is insane. Lapras is hitting a little bit harder. And no Paralysis still. Holy crap. By calling the Rest, you switch it to Executor. I think that's a pretty good call. Going for Double Edge, assuming something else was going to take a Psychic. So far, it's going pretty well for Snorlax. It's going to wake up here. And it can still threaten the Executor. But instead, you switch into Power Sand. Makes a lot of sense. Power Sand takes the Psychic decently well. Could be better. Now it's probably going to die. But you have no choice but to sack something. You choose to sack in your Sawsbuck. Fair enough. Even getting that 1% chip damage in. Very relevant. Back at Snorlax goes. You go for Explosion. Now Sotina will go for Tauros. Tauros, Hyper Beam does not kill, unfortunately. Blizzard hits really hard. Tauros does get killed here. So I actually don't know what this is. I'll just give you spoilers. Sotina is, I'm not gonna say where, but they are pretty high up in the bracket. There's the Shore Up. There's Blizzard. I guess Chansey can take on the Lapras, but I don't think Palisand can take this on their own. How many Blizzards are left? Oh, they're out of Blizzards. Oh, okay, I can see where this might be going. Oh boy, wait, is this actually a round 2 match where Palisand manages to win? I don't think it can beat... What am I looking at here? Now I just want to see how this plays out. I'm so confused. Okay, there's the sword stance. You're at max attack. But full paralysis really sucks. Oh my god. Well, that just happened. You go into Chansey, you have a Chansey mirror, but this Chansey does not, we have not seen Ice Beam. And since they switched, that's probably a good sign. You go for, oh, you get hit with a crit, holy crap. You go for Amnesia. Okay, Palisand gets killed. So I don't think this is the, okay, I change my mind. I don't think this is the replay I'm thinking of. I'm just gonna put this in hyper fast because I have no idea where this goes from here. Okay. This is... Actually, while this is going on, tell me, are you enjoying the video so far? Do you prefer videos like this where it's like... Oh, so yeah, this was definitely not the round 2 match I'm thinking of. I do not know what I accidentally clicked. But it was a good match. Definitely a good match. It was fun to see. But please let me know if you enjoy Jumble videos like this, going over like highlights instead of like reacting to the entire thing, as well as giving you an entire summary on what to talk about with the format beforehand. I'd love to hear your input. I'm going to try to have a video on round 2 very shortly, and then I'll start doing videos on Moose Bracket. I'm also going to still do what if videos, so don't worry about that. What if videos are not going anywhere. But thank y'all for watching. This is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.